The Adventures of Elliot, the Millennium Tales, is coming out by Square Enix, launching on June 18th on all platforms. And I had an opportunity to get to go to Square Enix's offices in LA and preview it. And now I want to talk about it. So, this game, first of all, I got to say, getting a chance to visit the Square Enix office was really cool. I've spoken about it before in my other preview work, but it was kind of a joint, got an invite to go in there. And right when you walk in, there's a cool setup of display, everything. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't geek out when I got to hold the Buster Sword and take a few fun photos before we got into our preview. So the preview, this game is developed by Square Enix, but they work very closely involving the team Asano, who's been so involved with all of their Octopath games that we've known, and has a very specific like 2D HD style and formatting and everything, but it's turn-based kind of gameplay that they've typically operated in. And this is an action RPG that they're doing with the Adventures of Elliot. And so we had about 45 minutes for the demo time after they gave us a rundown of everything. Nayafumi Matsushita was the producer, whose prior work was on Octopath 2, Live Alive, Bravery Default, Flying Fairy, and a few others, as well as the director of the game, Shota Fukabaru, who had done prior work on Bravery Default 2 and a few other projects as well. It really shows, you could definitely see the lineage of those prior works and what DNA they took from it to kind of mesh into what this new game is with this new IP. Something that was really cool was, I should say, when they were previewing the information offset, it was set 3 to 4 hours into the game. You can travel into various different points. They kind of gave us like an open world demo, I should say. And all the weapons were unlocked. There wasn't any story beats. I should preface, there was no story beats present in this demo, in this preview. So a lot of it was more just, how does the game play? How does the game feel? And what does that moment to moment feel like? And I was very impressed. I am cautiously optimistic, and I'll explain why I'm cautious after a few of the notes that I kind of go through. So the game itself is really engaging and fun. Like, getting a chance to be in that 2D HD kind of play style, but now being able to move very much like a Link's Awakening style game. It is very present that there's such inspirations from like games like Link's Awakening and those top-down kind of RPGs of yesteryear that we're all nostalgic for, with like Link's Awakening and Chrono Trigger and a few others. You have these time traveling elements as well that kind of draw from like that Link inspiration. You can go between one of 4 periods of time. It's the same map, and it just layers into these 4 different periods of time, which I'm hoping we understand what the significance is of these 4 different periods. And there's just a lot of RPG elements to it that like allowed for a lot of fun to be had. I think a lot of flexibility for how do you want to play, how do you want to explore, and how do you want to like really make the combat and just the way you build your character, your Elliot, how you want to go. And so a big part of it was, I'd say there's about 7 different weapons and a shield. You have 2 weapon slots, and how you choose which weapons to equip really changes how that combat experience can be great or not great for you. Like, I tried a few different combinations. There was like a boomerang, there was a bomb, there was a bow and arrow, there was a sword, there was a hammer, there was a couple other, there was a sickle, and there was a scythe and a spear. I may have overcounted there, but it's some combination of that. And I found that like some of them just felt like, okay, yeah, I could just put like a sword and a bow and arrow and like tried and true combo, you're set. But then I kind of tampered around with a few of the weapons as I was like running through dungeons and running through the open areas. And I found that having the spear was able to give me a lot of ranged options. And then if I was ever worried that the spear wasn't doing enough, or I was being too many enemies, like I was targeting one and 2 others were coming, the scythe was able to do something where it's like kind of like a AoE attack, a little whirlwind hit. And so I was just always able to keep all enemies at bay no matter what I was doing, which was really cool and fun. And then that combination is something that I was like, okay, this is, I feel like you can play like this for a minute or change how you need to depending on the type of dungeon or encounter you're in. But I felt like all the options, at least in the world, open world that we got to experience, were viable. Like there wasn't any best case. It was just how do you like to play and how do you want to play. I really vibed with that one. I will say difficulty didn't seem like it was very much of a thing. Going into the menus, there wasn't too much in terms of like tweaking anything. Like when I tried going to the hardest difficulty, it didn't seem like it was changing much of the aggression or the intelligence of the NPCs, the enemies. It felt like more just they hit harder, you hit not as hard, and that's about it. And I was like, okay, well, all right, I don't care as much about that, but it was just more like, oh, I wonder what makes it harder. Like, is there strategy involved? Do I play slower? Do I change how my play style is? You just play a little bit more cautiously. You don't want to take a hit. That's about it. Going back to the weapons have abilities built into them, so you could have charge moves. So, like with the spear, for instance, you could hold the attack and then you do a running charge, or with the sword you would be doing a greater slash, or with the hammer you would charge up your hammer strike and you would move around slowly with it, and then you would bonk them real hard and potentially stun an enemy. This is also in case tied to not so much a skill tree, but it's like a weapon tree. So each weapon has its own skill tree, quote unquote, and you have a X amount of what is called in this game magicite, which is essentially like an allotment of points you can put into that specific weapon and select specific skills or buffs that could be associated to that weapon. So if I have 25 magicite points for my spear, I could spend 3 of them on one that was like, hey, buffs normal attacks. I could spend 5 of them on another one that's like, hey, your charging is reduced by half a second. I can increase my crit rate, or I can be like, hey, give me a when I do my charge attack, now you're giving fire damage, or now you're breaking through shields, or something to that effect. But it will take up 20 of my magicite points, and I can do this for each weapon. And that to me was really cool because each weapon then could further play into, okay, I got these 2 combo weapons together that complement each other in my playstyle. But then if I use different skills on each of them, I could really hone into a fun playstyle that just leans into a glass cannon type of build, or I can do all kinds of funky AoE stuff. The bow and arrow has one where you can like shoot arrows, and they just, when you do the charge shot, it hones in on enemies with some extra arrows. So I like that flexibility. I think it's doing something really fun there, that it seems like as you go further, the way you unlock further, it's not a preset amount of these types of attacks. You go to merchants and you're able to spend resources to acquire new ones, or if you land on existing ones, maybe a higher tier, like an A grade or an S grade version of a pre-existing skill, and you're like, oh, that one is now going to hit for more, that buff it's giving is going to up, or it's going to do some new ability. So getting a chance to do that was like where I really sunk my teeth in this demo, almost too much. And it kind of had an automatic system there too of like, hey, if you pull any ones that you already own, it just automatically disassembles them and recycles them into materials for yourself to be able to use again. I dug that. I thought that was a fun way to play around with leveling or RPGing of any kind of way. Like, there's so many ways you can do RPG mechanics. You can go into attribute points, you can go into skill trees, and what Adventures of Elliot is doing with this, I really dug, with that weapon customizability and playstyle. Other than that, I would say it was a pretty straightforward demo. Like, again, it offered a lot of flexibility. It was more so just how does that moment-to-moment feel. I got to do one proper dungeon, and at the end of that dungeon was kind of the end of the demo. And the biggest part of that dungeon that I dug, I would say, was the boss fight. I thought they let me fight these 2 kind of giant mechs that, as you go further and further through their health, they would enter different stages of like aggression or different type of mechanics. And again, I really dug how it felt to go moment to moment. I should say, you also have this fairy character who kind of, again, it feels very Link's Awakening adjacent in so many ways. Like the Square Enix is like we got this, but we're gonna do our version of it. And I'm into it too because it brings in new ideas, new formulas, new things that we haven't seen before, while still also kind of being familiar. And one of those things is you have your fairy assistant who she's kind of like floating around talking to you or telling you not what you can't do or can do. And you can equip certain abilities, so you can have one where it just allows you to dash if the dash ability to her, or another where it turns her into a heat-seeking missile that you can just go around burning everyone down from a distance and just control her adjacently to you, and a few others that I don't think we got too much time to play with. And then it was really cool to see like how a little weird thing that I thought it was cool that they let us preview just because it felt like a bonus feature more than anything else, was the game allows you to access and just kind of playlist its soundtrack, almost like Smash Brothers, where you can just be like, here's the whole soundtrack to the game, and it's a beautiful soundtrack. But the way in which you acquire most of those tracks is through these mini games that you do with those special abilities with the fairy. So there's a mini game, like a time mini game, where you do it with the dash ability, and you just do this kind of like, how long can you go, or can you get S rank with that ability in the mini game, and how many tracks can you get in that run. And then with the fire one, you have to do a different fun game with that one, and each one has its own little fun game. It's fun enough where you're incentivized to want to go for those tracks. And so I like that loop of like, okay, I'll do this because I'm going to get these cool songs, but you don't need to do it if you don't want to do it. So it's kind of like a neat bonus feature. Like I was saying, I was like, oh, cool, this is neat. But otherwise, yeah, that was my time with the Adventures of Elliot. The Millennium Tales is coming out on June 18th on all platforms, on Switch 2, Xbox, PlayStation, and PC on Steam. We played it on PlayStation 5s, and it looked beautiful, but I think the demo has been out, and they've taken a lot of time from the demo they released a year ago to take feedback from the pacing and rhythm of everything. So it feels like they're really trying to hone in on what could make this a good experience. And where I go back to my point of my cautiously optimistic is the way it plays is great. I'm just worried, like, this is with everything unlocked for the most part in terms of the weapons and everything. I'm really worried, or not really worried, but I would reserve my judgment on this pending how they gate where and when I get the weapons to reach this level of fun. They said it was about like 3 or 4 hours into the game, so hopefully it's pretty quick and you like just go to the bell of the ball. But that and the story pacing, like if it ends up hindering the pace and rhythm of this, where it doesn't feel as quick paced and everything as it felt in this demo, then that could hurt it. And I feel like that could be an area of concern. But having not tried, not known the story beats or not knowing the rhythm of that pacing, that is the only area where I hold any kind of reservation. But otherwise, like, it felt great. I'm really excited for this. It's really cool to see the team that created this Octopath Traveler IP and has now made 3 proper games, 3 like mainline console games and 1 mobile game, and Triangle Strategy as well, and working on all these other things to now go into a new IP. If this does well enough and it's a tight enough experience, like to then further incite a potential growth in this IP and more Adventures of Elliot, that'd be cool. I'm always into new ways of which we, again, inspired from old games, but like kind of say a new statement or bring in new ideas. And I think Adventures of Elliot, the Millennium Tales, is doing that. So if any of this sounds interesting, are you curious or excited to play this game? Is this been on your radar? If it's not, I recommend you check it out. Let me know what you think, because I'd love to hear what everyone else's thoughts are of the look, of the feel, of the play style, and the silliness. It's got a lighthearted tone to it that from the dialogue and everything that I really dug. And I'm really curious to see what everyone thinks. But that's my preview. And stay tuned for more content. We'll be posting all kinds of fun new thoughts and discussions soon. But until then, catch you on the next save point.